Joanna Quinn is an artist, but she can draw so fast you will normally see her sketches fly by at the rate of 12 per second. Her award-winning animation is all produced in her own Cardiff studio, but has delighted audiences around the world. And an Oscar nomination in 1998 has now made her a name in Hollywood too. But if animation conjures up the vision of Saturday morning cartoons for children, get ready to have your eyes opened. Joanna was catapulted into the limelight in 1987 with her first feature, Girls' Night Out, a film she began making while still a final year student at Middlesex Poly. It immediately won her several international awards. It tells the story of Beryl, a factory worker who is taken by friends on a surprise birthday outing to the pub, where she discovers another side to herself altogether.
It stood out amongst the student films because it was brilliant. You know, I mean, I've never come across a student that was so fully formed as an animator, as an artist. It was perfect, and it was also much wittier than anything that one sees from most professional filmmakers. I think what made it stand out was probably a combination of this amazing style that, you know, would do credit to any graphic artist, really, and this rather strange, saucy postcard kind of humour that she puts into it. Very, very unique.
It's her view of women, and men to a certain extent. I mean, there's that lovely shot when Beryl's leaving the flat. I just think it's hilarious, because the man looks amazingly like the bloke I was living with at the time, who was a total couch potato, because I did point it out to Joanna, and she went, mm-hmm.
Hey, love, I'm off now, okay? Hey, look, I gotta go out, love. Bev's arranged something, I can't let her down, see her? Huh? All right, so listening?
And I think that is just wonderful. He just grunts. But she knows she's out to have a great time with the girls. And I think it shows that also Joanna remembers that girls do have such a good time when they get together.
Are you girls? I'm you!
It was quite unique for women to go to male strippers at that time. And Jo was very kind of interested in that. So the first time she ever went, you know, she came back absolutely effervescent with experience of this thing.
They were outrageous. They were so rude, these women. And I was like, I couldn't believe it. There was this one granny, I mean, she was just like Beryl. And she was there with her, I think it must have been her granddaughter who was getting married. And the stripper was doing his stuff. So she grabbed her chair, took a swig of her beer, grabbed her chair, and then went, sat right in front of him and went like this, waiting for her head to be buried into his pouch. And I was like, I couldn't believe it. And everybody was hooting with laughter, and he was really intimidated, you know. So my film was very tame in comparison to what it's really like.
I think the experience of it was very different from the male experience of female strippers, which is the fact that it was very humorous, very open, very direct, and it wasn't at all the kind of male, the idea that you just ogle a naked female form in front of you and there's no humour attached to that. I think that experience, that one experience, was instrumental in showing Joanna the possibilities of breaking down that kind of awful male preserve and developing, through her films, accessible female perspectives.
I saw it and I saw immediately here was a rare talent. Now this is the middle 80s and life has moved on. But at that time, that subject matter was just ahead of its time. It was cutting edge, and the best artists are just ahead of their time and are actually taking their audience with them and introducing something to them that now would be passé, but then was very novel.
Joanna moved to Cardiff 14 years ago, where she quickly teamed up with Les Mills, her former art teacher, and got involved in Cardiff's burgeoning animation industry. As they began working together, with Les as scriptwriter, Joanna's films soon reflected her new Welsh surroundings, drawing heavily on the everyday life of people around her.
Joanna is the world's biggest observer of people. You know, there's never a moment when she's not like looking at people, making visual notes, making mental notes, making physical notes. I mean, she still draws. The earliest opportunity, wherever we go, she draws.
What I'm interested in is exploring character and getting a complex character across. And I think maybe with kids' stuff, that's not the primary concern. You know, you don't really want to challenge children, but I'd like to challenge an adult audience. And I'm trying to grasp character. I'm trying to play with character and capture the unique things about people and try and get that across. She's a stroppy one because she's talking, like she's got her mouth open. Sonia is she's quite cool and balanced, and she knows where she's at, and she's got these strange friends, but she's, you know, she's cool. And Tracy's a bit... Doing animation, you have to bring them alive, so it's pointless just making their legs walk or you've got to know, you know, we all sit in a certain way and we all move in a certain way, and you're not going to make somebody rush around if they're a bit dozy in their character. So you've got to know their character before you start to animate. So that's Tracy, that's Sonia, that's Bev, and that's Beryl.
Well, there actually was a Beryl, you see. That I think when she was in college, there was this woman who used to serve behind in a refectory behind the bar there, who looked like Beryl looks. And she just took that character and put it in different situations, different environments, and developed her.
I suppose Beryl is every woman. I mean, she happens to be Welsh, but I'm sure that there are Beryls all over the country. Beryl must also be Joanna to some extent.
Beryl is me in a way, you know. She hasn't got a reason to hate anybody. She just gets on with life, but she's very strong, and she doesn't feel that she's any weaker or a second-class citizen just because she's a woman. And she's just sort of getting on with life, and she doesn't need to prove anything to anybody until she's forced into a situation where she'll deal with that situation and be strong and do what she has to do, because morally she has to do it. But she's not really doing it for any feminist reasons. She's just doing it for her own self-preservation, you know, and what her own morals. God, she's just a cartoon, Joanna.
Joanna's view, I think, that women are strong comes from the fact that basically, I'm tough. All my friends are tough. And tough in a sort of get on and do it, you know. You've got to do it, let's do it happily and get through it and have a good time if we can. I don't think I know anybody sort of like any wimpy women. I mean, I've heard of them. But I don't know. I think they're dying out, thank goodness. So she certainly had no impression when she was growing up that such people existed.
Beryl as a character was so accessible, so popular, that Joanna didn't want to let go of the character. She wanted to develop it. The idea of setting it in a factory was quite obvious. Because of South Wales, because of what was going on here. Women were working more than men. Most of the factories in the area were Japanese. So it was a pretty obvious thing to do, to take that and exploit it.
Body Beautiful was again a film of its time, and it recognised an issue of sexual harassment, particularly at work, and how you could deal with it. And I think millions of women identify with what Joanna was saying in that film.
It says here there's only 1 calorie in that lettuce leaf there.
It can't, it's only a month away and she gotta get into her outfit.
I can't see myself in that costume, though.
Hey, what's that? A whale costume?
Oh!
Hey, stand for it, boys.
For God's sake, Vince, I'll bloody kill him. That's it, Beryl. We've had enough. You've got to do something about him.
Yeah.
He's got to be stopped now.
All right. Now, don't worry, girls. Just you leave it to me, right?
I suppose Vince in Body Beautiful summed up everything. You know, he was the target that Beryl had to overcome. And he was very much a stereotypical representation of a male figure, a dominant male in a work situation.
Vince, he's my hero. He's great. Because Vince is tough on the outside and like this sort of yobbo on the outside, but actually deep down he's a big softie. And so because I see him as a three-dimensional character, and we only get odd glimpses of his softiness, but I couldn't do him if he was that horrible. I couldn't make him that horrible, because I suppose I do just tend to think there's good in everybody, and that if he's foul and nasty and sexist, and it's not his fault, you know. Just the way he's brought up, isn't it?
Vincent Potter from Otto. Vincent.
When I'm listening to the characters and watching them act on the screen, I'm hearing the actors and enjoying, like Rob Brydon being Vince. I think he's fantastic, and just hearing him just makes me die laughing. I love his voice. And so to me, Vince and Rob are all mixed up, and that makes me laugh.
When you record a voice for an animation, it's quite important that you give it as much colour as you can. From your own point of view, because it makes it a more interesting character, but from the animator's point of view, it gives them something to work with. So you'll find a lot of actors, when they're doing stuff, we'll give them little characteristics, you know, they'll just screw up their nose and stuff, and then the animation will reflect that. So in Body Beautiful, with Vince, you know, and he's going, all right there, you know, and he's screwing his face up as well. And if you actually screw your face up when you're doing it, you know, I mean, they got something to work with, haven't they?
Whoever I'm drawing, whether it's male or female, whether it's an animal or whether it's human, I always look at my own face and put my features into the most extreme position and work towards that when I draw, because you know, if you're showing an emotion, I try and do that emotion with my face. This is my animation station, and this is where I work, and it's got a a light box in it, so you can see through the drawings. So what I tend to do is turn that out, because then you can see, well, you can't actually, but normally you can. If the overhead light is turned off, you can see through your drawings and draw the in-between position. That's why you use a light box. My Muybridge book. Muybridge used to break down movement with photographs. But it's great for animation, because you can sit down and, I don't mean copy, but you can analyse the movement and think, when that leg goes down, the other one comes off, and you can see where the weight and the pressure is. So he studied all sorts of animals, and he had performing horses doing very clever tricks. There's one pretending to be a rocking horse. I've got some stills from Girls' Night Out and Body Beautiful here. Les is always the one saying, this is animation, you can do anything with the drawings. And I'm always saying, I want it to be real, you know, I want people to identify with these characters, and you can't be too wacky. And you say, yes, you can do anything. And that's one thing I'm always battling with, because I know he's right, you can do anything, and it's just trying to keep the sense of reality, but also the sense of imagination and fantasy.
What's up, little Vincey, 'cause you're gone? Lincy Wincy, is the pace too much for you to bear? It looks a bit embarrassing for you, keeps harassing all the girls from up by here to down by there.
Animation really came to me at when I was at college. I wasn't one that... You meet lots of animators who have done animation since they were 2, and they've been doing, like, worms that go on Super 8 and all these sort of little films. But I was never one of them. I've never been obsessed with animation. I've been obsessed with drawing, but not animation. Once I'm drawing, I just drift away. I just get involved with the line, and you create a line. Even if the drawing doesn't represent something, there's something really satisfying about creating a nice drawing. When you draw from life, when you actually observe movement, you start to learn and understand the movement and what it is that makes somebody walk. For instance, walking seems terribly simple, but it's something that we've learnt to do. You can tell when somebody's, what they're feeling just by the way they're walking. You've got to try and capture that moment.
Most animation has a very strong line. If you look at Disney or Saturday morning cartoons or anything like that, they've got a very strong shape thing. Joanna's doesn't do that. It makes it much more time-consuming, but she actually uses a loose line. And it means that her work is very fluid. It's very artistic. It defies being coloured, but it often doesn't need that.
I don't really notice colour. When people say, look at the colours in those trees. And I think, oh yeah, I never noticed that before. Yeah, I just don't notice colour around me very much. Just a very boring black and white person.
In Joanna's next film, she took a savage look at Britain's imperial past, using the character of a bulldog. Yet more awards followed, and with them, critical acclaim.
Wake up!
Yeah, I think it's the best film she's ever done. She felt very strongly about what she was doing. So she was able to kind of spill out all this stuff that she'd been thinking for years in this one film.
I thought Britannia was fantastic the first time I saw it. I was really amazed, and this is terrible, I don't ever tell Joanna I've said this. I was amazed she'd made it. I hadn't realised how aware and how thoughtful she was.
Joanna was very, very anxious to do Britannia. She has very strong political views, which she was absolutely desperate to get out. And I think that for this reason, it's a very important film to her. And I'm sure that its kind of deeply subversive anti-British message goes down very well all around the world.
I do think it's tame, because I think what Britain did was worse than that. And I'm not saying the Spanish didn't do that or the Portuguese didn't do that, but I'm saying the British did do that, and the film is about the British. And I do feel quite strongly about politics and about socialism, because I've been brought up like that.
Her use of the art form developed even more with Britannia. She was able to morph from sequence to sequence and image to image. And I think the best example of that is near the end, where the bulldog, whom we've got used to, the imperial bulldog, suddenly becomes a poodle and walkies and out on the streets in a very cosmopolitan Britain. And I think that's a superb example of her work.
Come on.
Ladies and gentlemen, live at Whiskers Palace, Las Vegas, Nevada, it's Fred!
Famous Fred marked a turning point for Joanna. Having said she would never make a film for children, she agreed to animate Posey Simmons' book about the secret life of a singing superstar cat. The project meant working with a whole team of animators and a budget of almost £1 million. It eventually won her a nomination at last year's Oscars, and with it, far greater recognition.
Well, I've been around the world, from Catford down to Kathmandu. I've been scatting in Manhattan, or as Frank says, doobie-doobie-doo. I've seen the 7 wonders of the world, and baby, the 8th is you.
I was surprised that she finally agreed to do Fred, because John Coates had been trying to persuade her for years to do it.
Oh, Cat Fred is dead!
I'm very glad that she did, because you can make the most brilliant short films in the world and win the most festival prizes, but you don't get your name known, and I think Joanna's name does deserve to be known.
I remember him. He used to sleep in my dustbin.
He was the laziest cat in the whole world.
Oh, she can draw like nobody. I mean, she's just the most marvellous draftswoman. And that's attractive, because you can't do anything in this business if you can't draw. And an awful mass of animators can't, I'm sorry to say.
Well, when John phoned me, I was thinking, oh my God, John Coates is on my phone, because he is like the most important person in animation in Britain. He is the godfather of animation. I couldn't have said no anyway, you know, because this was John Coates asking me, so I didn't even think I could say no. You know, I was so flattered that he asked little me.
A lot of animators are rather introverted, but they all have an acting something that comes through in the drawings and the way they bring the performance out in the character. So they always poo-poo the idea, but I always say they're frustrated actors, a whole lot of them. And because Joanna's not the only one that isn't, because she's totally extrovert.
I think Joanna is quite mischievous, and I think that she liked the idea of this story about this cat. I mean, to start with a dead cat, that is quite a mischievous thing to be peddling to children at Christmas. And I think, you know, with all that, there's a lot of cheekiness in the dialogue about, you know, what Fred got up to at night. And I think that this is absolutely up Joanna's street.
Mr. Fred, you are due on stage in 5 minutes. Mr. Fred, is there somebody else in there? What are you up to?
Well, on Famous Fred, I was lucky enough to play the part of several assorted cats. I have very little experience in the cat world, and I think that was why perhaps I wasn't awarded a larger role in this production. But I do have a very, very, very fond memory of work. I got to work with Tom Courtenay.
We'd always envisaged Tom Courtenay playing the role of Kenneth.
A 16. Thought as much.
I love the idea of ad-libbing and not just using the actors as actors, but actually trying to involve them a bit more, because then you get a much more, it's more enthusiasm in the voices, and it's more to do with real characterisation and not just reading a script.
Tom Courtenay was sitting there being like very, very northern, all quiet like that. And Joanna came out of the booth at one point and said, right, she said, in her way, she said, I just need a pile of you to come in and do just lots of meows and things like that. So we all got up to go, and Tom stayed sitting there, and I thought, well, obviously, she's not going to ask Tom Courtenay to do this. And Tom Courtenay, I would imagine, thinking along the same lines, said, shall I do this? Meaning, I won't, will I, obviously? And Joanna said, yes, come in. So Tom Courtenay, this huge British actor, ends up going into this little voice booth, and there's a group of us, you know, jobbing voices around a microphone. And what we had to do was, I think it was when one of the cats was singing, we had to go... So we're all doing it, just, you know. And I looked across, and Tom Courtenay, being a proper actor, was totally into it. Had his eyes shut, okay? And he was like this. And I thought, you know, God, I'm working with Tom Courtenay, and he's being a cat.
Squeeze ya, hug ya, hug ya, tighter than my lycra pants.
It's won jolly nearly every award except the Oscar. It got nominated for the Oscar, and we all went over there in hope, and it didn't win. Should have done, actually. And some one of those clever digital things that nobody will look at more than once, probably, and Fred will go on for years and years entertaining people. Anyway.
Although it was successful, I mean, she got an Oscar nomination out of it. For me, it's not really a Joanna film. I think the thing that she got out of it was this incredible experience of dealing with a big studio situation, because the animation for that was done in Hungary, it was done in Spain, I think in Russia maybe, and in Britain. And dealing with like 100, 150 people on a film is very, very different to dealing with it on your own, in your bedroom, basically.
This is some artwork from The Wife of Bath. I mean, as you can see, it's only a 5-minute film, but all these boxes are full of drawings. So it just takes such a long time. This is the blacksmith and his wife, or barrel maker, actually, turned into.
Joanna has recently collaborated on the Canterbury Tales, a major co-production involving animators from Britain and Russia. Her film, The Wife of Bath's Tale, tells the story of a knight who faces certain death unless he can answer the question, what do women most desire in life? As Joanna ponders over what to do next, it's a question that she too has to face.
Could you tell me, what does a woman most desire?
She can do anything she wants to, I would have thought. I mean, I'd love her to make another film for us, but I've got to persuade her, and she's very tied up in wanting to do her own thing.
No way through here, sir. Tell us what you're looking for.
Mother, what do women most desire?
Oh, another Beryl film, please. That's what I think she should do. And I think that's what she wants to do. I don't think she wants to work for anyone anymore, you know, like for Famous Fred or whatever. I think she wants to be her own boss and do a Beryl film. I hope.
My good man, what do women most desire?
Obviously, I wanted to work with me for obvious reasons, and working on something very, very personal, very, very expressive, something that she feels very strongly about, something that she can get her teeth around and work at for the next year.
Fancy clothes! Very good seeing to.
The animation industry in Wales relies on key people to say we are world class and to push youngsters, to push technicians, to push other animators working on it, to push the musicians, whatever. They want to aspire to Joanna's level. And Wales will never be world class unless it does that across the range. But you need the Joannas to do that, and we're very fortunate to have her.
If you can tell me, I'd make it worth your while.
Give me your oath. You'll do the very next thing I ask of you, and before sunset, you'll have your answer.
My oath, you have it. Anything.
Your life is safe. Listen.
I always wanted glasses. I always wanted to have bad sight. And I always wanted to go to prison. I really like the idea of being in prison. Perhaps it's something to do with being an only child. I love the idea of just people locking you away in a room. Animator! That's exactly the same thing, being locked away in a room with no friends.